home in Capernaum by the sea, in the territory of Zebulun and Naphtali, so that what had been spoken through the prophet Isaiah might be fulfilled. Lord, land of Zebulun, land of Naphtali, on the road by the sea, across the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people who sat in darkness have seen a great light, and for those who sat in the region and the shadow of death, light has dawned. From that time, Jesus began to proclaim, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near." As he walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who was called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting nets into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fish for people." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. As he went from there, he saw two other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John, in the boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets, and he called them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Jesus went through Galilee, teaching in the synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and curing every disease and every sickness among the people. And this is the word of the Lord for the people of the Lord. Amen. So, the story this week. You know, we're back into the Gospels, the stories, and we've never really left the stories, but the Bible is a great just storybook, and if you ever want to read it like that, read a children's Bible to a little one. They're stories, and they're really cool stories. And so we know the story of Peter and James and John and it being called by Jesus, and so you can get the picture of this Galilee by the sea. And it sounds picturesque, and you see these guys in these boats, and they're mending their nets, and they're casting out their nets, and Jesus says, "Come and follow me." And they drop everything, and they follow him. And that's an awesome story. And so then I come to church every week, and I'm waiting for this.
Lewis Chapel, this is God. You're being called.
Because that's what we're waiting for, right? Can you hear that, bud? I was worried about not having periods this morning, and I thought, I'll show him. That's what we're waiting for, isn't it? We're waiting for the voice of God to call us and tell us exactly what to do. And when he does, we're there. We'll do it. I told Marianne. She laughed at me. She said, "No, you wouldn't." I said, if Jesus Christ came down here and said, "Go to Africa and feed the whatever," I would go. And she said, "No, you wouldn't." It's like, well, I can at least live in my fantasy world, right? That we want to be called. We want God to speak to us. We want the voice to come down and tell us exactly what to do. There's an old joke about the voice. Do you know the joke, right? This guy is going to go out fishing, so he goes out to the ice and he cuts a hole in the ice, and a voice says,
"There are no fish under the ice."
And he says, "Whoa, that's pretty cool." I knew I should have been fishing today instead of going to church. God's speaking to me. So he moves a little ways down and he cuts another hole, and the voice comes back.
"There are no fish under the ice."
Wow, that's pretty cool. He goes down, he cuts another hole. The voice says,
"Get off the ice or the Zamboni will run over you."
We're waiting for the voice to tell us what to do. Because we want to be called. We want to be called by God. But if you look at the story is interesting. Because the story doesn't, like all the stories in the Bible, it doesn't really say what we think it says. We think that here are these guys sitting around praying and being very holy and waiting for God to do that, and that they're going out and they're raising money for missions, and they're doing all of the right things, and they're out doing God's work, and God comes and calls them, and that's why they're called, because they're doing all the right stuff. That's not what they were doing. What were they doing? They were going about their life. They were just doing what they did every day. Every day they got up and they went to work. And they went to work as fishermen, and they were doing mundane things like mending nets. You know, they were filling gas tanks. They were cleaning houses. They were doing the things. They were taking care of computer problems. They were just doing their jobs. They were just going about their business. They weren't doing all of the things that we think we have to do sometimes. They were just doing their business. But they were ready. And they believed. When Jesus said, come follow me, they went. So the message for us maybe is that instead of waiting for the voice to tell us the Zamboni's coming, or the voice telling us that we need to do this thing or this thing, and then we'll be doing God's work, we just need to go about our business, our daily life. We need to go about doing what it is that we should do. And we should do that in the knowledge now that Jesus Christ has come and he has shown us what it means to be a Christian. And so we can do our life, we can do God's work while we go about our lives. All of us touch people every day. Whether we're still working or whether we're retired, we still touch people every day. And it's in the everyday of life that Jesus appears to us. We're waiting for the thunderbolt. But he was just walking along the beach, and he said, hey, come on. And that's where God calls to us too. And then if you think about it, Christianity has been around for a long time now, 2,000 years. And I'm a history teacher, right? So Christianity spread like wildfire across the Roman world. But not in the lives of these guys that were called. Jesus had followers, and he had people that followed him around, but it was in the thousands. It wasn't in the millions like it is today. They didn't know the scope of what they were doing. They were just touching the people that they came in contact with. They had no idea that this was going to spread in the first place, Peter and James and John and those guys never really knew that they were starting a new thing. They thought that they were just following through with the Jewish tradition that they had been raised in, that Jesus was the Messiah that had been promised, and that they were just going to keep doing the same thing. It's not until later after that the Gospels are written and that Christianity spreads across the globe. They only knew about the people that they touched, just like we do. We only know about the people that we touch in our lives. And we also are called. And we're really called in the same way that they were called. As we go through our lives, God's going to say to us, hey, come and do this. And if we're listening, then we'll say, oh, okay, and we'll go do that thing. We don't have to worry and spend all our time worrying that, what does God want me to do? What is God's plan for me? God's plan for us is to be the people that he created us to be, to go about our lives and to do them, but to do them in knowledge that we have a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. And we can have that sure knowledge of that, and so we can go through our daily lives, and that's what we're called to do. We're not necessarily called to do, whatever it is that start new religions or solve the problem of malaria in the third world or solve the problems of politics here. Maybe some of us are, but most of us are called to just go about our lives and to touch the people that we touch. James and John and Peter, those guys were all ordinary people, just like we are, going about their ordinary lives. And Jesus called them and said, here, got a job, come and do this. And God does the same thing for us. As we go about our ordinary lives, we need to see the call of God in that. And it's not necessarily some great earth-shattering thing. Jesus didn't say, come and we're going to start a worldwide revolution and change the world, and I'll be crucified and all you guys are going to be dead too, but we'll change the world, and they'll write stories about us for thousands of years. He didn't say all of that. He said, come and follow me. And that's what he says to us, come and follow me. And I was really glad, this whole thing, as I was thinking about it, made me think of the grace of God. Grace, Marianne talked about grace a little bit last week. Grace is a hard thing to pin down. And so I was thinking about, how do you explain grace? It's like pixie dust, maybe? Or, so, John's not home, but I still have the geek out moments, even without John. The Force, the Star Wars. You're going to make another Star Wars. The Force. That's what grace is like. Grace is like the Force, right? Grace is something that's there. It's everywhere. It surrounds us. It's in us. It works through us. And the power of grace allows us to do great things. And grace was there first. Grace is there before we do anything about it. God's grace touches all of us, and it calls us to come to him and to do His work in the world. And as we accept the call of that grace continues to work in us and let us do more and more wonderful things. And so these men that were called by the seashore, they didn't start out to do this wonderful stuff, but they did respond to the call of Jesus Christ and to the call of grace. And that call gave them power to do the things that they would go on to do. I am sure that if anybody had said to Peter the day before this story happened, you are going to go on to lead a great group and you will be persecuted by the religious leaders and by the Roman Empire, and you will be crucified, I'm pretty sure he would have said, you got the wrong guy, because I am just fishing. I am just doing my job. I am just a fisherman. That's all I do. God uses His grace. He used it in Peter's life, and He uses it in our lives too, to help us to respond to that call of God, so that we can be in a relationship with God through Jesus Christ that God calls us to. And so, as we go into the world this week, let us think about the grace of God and that call. And that call might be the thunder from above. But it might just be somebody saying, hey, I need some help with this. Can you help me? Hey, pray with me. Hey, I'm having a bad time. Listen to my story. Calls can be big and calls can be small. But we need to hear the voice of God in all of that call. And it's sometimes in simple little ways. And so let us respond to that this morning with number 348.